So today I decided that I was going to try filming with the rear camera on my phone because I film using my iPhone, and yes, mind blown to some people that I've actually been using the front facing camera. Is that weird or not? I don't know, I can't tell. But I thought, hey ho, let me try and take advantage of the better camera quality of the back facing camera. Little did I know it was going to take me a good 35 minutes to set up and try and get my positions in place, and I'm probably never going to do this again, so enjoy this nice quality video while it lasts, because I'm definitely going back to the front facing camera. Like, this has made me hot and tired and stressed, so yeah. Also, you can see all the gaps in the paint behind me way better, so enjoy that. Anyway, today I am going to be talking about mental health and parenting, because I'm a parent and because I have mental health issues. So I figured, why not talk about it? This is the second time today I'm filming this video. I did do it earlier, so I've actually planned this one out a little bit more. Maybe that's why I didn't go so well this morning too, because I was winging it, but here we go. Mental health and parenting, obviously they're two massive things, and they do kind of, well, of course they clash a lot, because you have your mental health issues, if you like, all of the time, and you're a parent all of the time, and they're two massive things that have to kind of coincide, and it's not the easiest thing in the world to do at all. So the first one on my list is going to be talking about support, or lack of, really. I know that when I had my first daughter, I'm a mum of two. I have two girls, one is 4 and one is 6. And when I was pregnant, and even afterwards, nothing was really kind of said to me about having support for your mental health throughout pregnancy and throughout parenthood in general, because these were things that obviously my GP and local services were aware of. So you would have kind of thought that some guidance would have been put in place, or even just some like extra monitoring. Nothing was said to me, not by the GP, not by midwives, health visitors, that's pretty much everyone. There wasn't anything mentioned other than the kind of basic things of talks about postpartum depression. Is prepartum depression, is that a thing, or have I made that up? But anyway, unless it's been kind of depression or low mood linking to pregnancy and childbirth and becoming a new mum, nothing was kind of said about long-term support for having mental health issues and how to deal with that roller coaster whilst parenting and whilst being a new mum, and later on in life as your children grow up. Nothing was kind of said, and I think that's kind of a big massive gap that needs to be filled, because so many of us, so many mums, dads, whatever you are, whatever parent you are, so many people have these mental health issues to deal with, and then you realise that it's not just you that's affected by them now. There's a child in your life, and it's a whole other human being, not only a whole other human being, but one that you're solely responsible for. I think that it's something that we could perhaps talk about a little bit more and be addressed a little bit more, and just have more support put in place. How do you deal with that whilst taking care of another entire human being? The next thing I wanted to speak about was exposing your children to it. It's a tough one. It is a tough one as a parent. You can't hide yourself. You can't hide all of yourself. Of course, we all want to protect our children. We want to keep them safe from anything that's going to have a negative impact on them, and any dangers and things like that. But it's not realistic that you're going to be able to hide all of that part of yourself from your child. And should you? Why should you hide yourself from your child? Of course, like I say, you want to use your common sense and stuff, but it's not realistic that your child is never going to find out that you have mental health issues, and they're not going to see how that affects you. And that just brings this whole kind of grey area to people where they just don't really know what to do. I know I personally, I try and do the normal things of don't have a breakdown in front of your kids, or don't lose your temper with yourself, or reactions that you might have to things that you kind of try and tone down, especially with BPD, like the intense reactions and emotions that we have to things, and you're really trying to contain and suppress that. What happens if somebody upsets you, or you get triggered while you're out with your child? It's difficult to know what to do, and exactly how to go about that, and how to handle that, and what kind of things to show or not show to your child. Along with that comes self-harm, which I've talked about many times in my videos. Hiding self-harm, how do you go about that if you're somebody like myself who has had many incidents and will have many more incidents of self-harm? What do you do when you're doing that type of behaviour but you're around a child? I know that if I have an incident like that, I will always do it in a place that is going to be hidden. My legs are a main target, so I'll do an area that I can cover up and not have to expose them to and have them see it, so they're not seeing fresh wounds or anything like that. As I've said again, I have many very visible and obvious scars. You can't keep yourself covered up all of the time, and again, why should you keep yourself covered up all the time? Now that my children are older, they do ask me, oh, how did you get that? Mummy, why have you got those marks? Like, I don't know, it kind of wins you, like takes your breath away for a minute, because you have that moment of panic and you're thinking to yourself, like, what do I say? What do I do? What's the best way to go about this? I kind of say, I'll tell you when you're older. That's been my go-to, because I don't want to lie to them, but they're obviously too young to understand the complexities of adult mental health and my mental health. It's not an easy subject, and it's not something that's talked about. And if we don't talk about this, and you don't have a close one to talk about this, or somebody that you know that goes through the same experience to talk about it with, then how do you know what to say or do, and what is the right thing to say or do, and is there a right thing to say or do? It is all just down to personal preference and what we feel comfortable with. Another way that mental health affects me as a parent is not seeing my children. I will do another video at some point talking a little bit more about my journey, or my situation now, my growing up, things like that. So I'm just going to touch on this briefly, but I went from being in a relationship with my children's father and having my children full time, to that changing to us being separate and not having that natural thing of, or the most common thing, should I say, that is children are with mum and they go to dad's at the weekend or something. And I'm glad that I don't have that, because to be honest, I don't think it's fair. I think it's fair that you both, in my opinion, see the children as equal amounts as you possibly can. The initial reason for that changing, it wasn't because of making things fair, it's because I was so unwell. It was because I had my second overdose and my first hospital admission, and I was just so poorly that it kind of naturally came around that I had the children half of the time and their dad had children the other half of the time, and that was really difficult to adjust to. It was heartbreaking. Of course, I felt like an absolute failure as a parent. That's been like that for a couple of years now, so it's fine. It's a great routine, it works really well, and it's no problem at all. It meant that I didn't see my children for a while because I was just too poorly. Being in hospital meant that I didn't see them, and even with my most recent hospital admission, I didn't see my children for a month. That's not in any way because of any restrictions placed on me, it's actually because, and I'm very lucky to have a good relationship with the kid's dad, so he's very supportive, and if I'm not doing well, then he will offer to keep the children full time, just so I can kind of get myself back to a manageable state and be able to see them again. But that's hard again, because then you have, for me, like I say, a month where I haven't seen my children, and of course they're going to remember that, because like I say, my oldest is 6 and she has a great memory. I don't know where she's got it from. It definitely wasn't me, because I can't remember anything, but she will say to me, oh, you know, when we lived with each other, that was over 2 years ago now. And I think, how on earth can she remember that? And so of course she's going to remember these gaps in parenting, these gaps where she hasn't been seeing me, and she is going to ask me, oh, where were you, or why didn't I see you? And this is something that brings me into my next kind of couple of points that go together. One of them being feeling like a failure, and the other one about having feelings of guilt. The feelings of guilt that I have in connection to my children are bigger than any other thing at all in my life. My children are my biggest, not trigger, what's that word? Like conundrum, but that's not the word I'm trying to think of. Complex. Imagine. Is that the word? I don't bloody know. Whatever. My children are my biggest thing. I'm just going to roll with complex, and if it comes to me, then I'll put it on the screen when I edit this video. But I have this thing in my mind that I love my children to bits. I love my children more than anything in the world, and I would do anything for them. Partnered with that, the guilt that I feel then, because they're so perfect and because they're so amazing, they don't deserve this in my mind. I'm not saying this is true, but this is what my head tells me, is that they deserve better. They deserve a stable parent, or 2 stable parents, because one of them is stable and does everything a parent should do, and the other one is me. And I'm not saying that I don't do things, but I am unstable, and I am, you know how I am, you've seen how I am. So I regularly feel guilty that they have me as a mum, and I'm not trying to feel sorry for myself or anything, but it's a very big thing in mental health, where you feel like you're a burden on the people around you, the people that you love, your friends, your family. You feel like they would be better off without you, and it doesn't matter how many times somebody tells you otherwise. For me personally, I don't believe it, and I never will believe it, and that's fine. I'm at peace with that, so I'm not looking to change it or anything. It means that for my children, I fully believe that they would be better if I wasn't around, and that's a massive thing to hear, because if I talk about feeling suicidal, or if I'm really poorly and I'm unable to keep myself safe, dangerously so, then people will say to me, what about your children? But what about your children? I had a psychiatrist phone me yesterday. I was talking to him about certain things, and it was kind of like an assessment. And when I told him how I felt about things, he said, what about your children? And I said, well, it's not a case of I don't want to be here for them. It's in my mind, I would be doing them a favour, because if I wasn't here, yes, they might be lacking a parent, but at least they would have that one stable parent rather than having me that's inconsistent. And I definitely feel like how I am is going to eventually hurt them, not purposely, but it's going to hurt them when I don't see them for a while, or it's going to hurt them when they realise that all of those scars that they remember appearing throughout their childhood, when they're old enough to realise how they got there and put that together, then that's hurtful for them to think back on that and think, oh gosh, no, my mum does that, my mum hurts herself. How are they going to handle that? And then how am I going to handle that? It just raises so many questions. And as you know, this whole feeling of guilt and feeling like a failure and feeling like somebody would be better off, it snowballs massively. It takes over and you lose control, because once that happens, you start feeling down and you start feeling guilty, and then you start having the thoughts come into your mind, your head starts talking, the noise gets louder, all of those racing thoughts and everything that you can hear saying you're bad, you're a piece of shit, you're a failure, you're this, you're that, all of that starts to spin and spin and spin, and so it hurts. And then you kind of get sucked into this black hole, and then because it hurts, you get poorly, and because you're poorly you feel guilty, and because you feel guilty you're back, and you see it just goes on and on and on. So it's really difficult to kind of not be dragged into that. And it's not even about knowing how to get yourself out, it's just having the ability at that time. If you're too poorly, how are you going to pull yourself out of that? And then you think you're damaging them more. That's another thing that is just so massive. Like I say, there's just so many different sides to this coin and ways that it can affect you. Other than that, the only other things that I can think of is the tiredness. I am exhausted all of the time. I have insomnia, so I don't sleep properly, or I don't even know if it's insomnia. It's depression and BPD make you not sleep, or it's insomnia, whatever, it's the same thing. I very rarely sleep through the night, and if I do, it lasts for about a week if I'm lucky, and then it stops again. And if I do sleep through the night, I still wake up and I feel like I sleep for the rest of my life. I'm so tired all of the time, mentally drained, physically drained. Going out takes it out of me. When you add not being well on top of that, it's really, really difficult to even is to get out of bed anyway. And it's just so hard to then motivate yourself to do things like keep on top of the house, keeping on top of the clothes washing, or keeping on top of the washing up, or making a meal that is a little bit healthier rather than shoving something in from the oven or giving them beans on toast, because you just don't have it in you. Like you physically can't even get up to cook, or there's just nothing clean to cook with. And another thing that comes into that is not having the energy to do things with your children. Most of the time I do try to do things on the weekend. If we're not, I don't like being sat inside all day, and I like to get out at least once to get some fresh air, even if that's just walking around the shop. When you're too poorly, you don't really have it in you to play dolls, or to go to the park, or to even feel enthusiastic over something. And it's sad, it's really sad. And then this feeds back into what I've said about the guilt and the feelings of failure and the feelings like they'd be better off without you. It's really, really difficult. And I think that this is just such a massive thing that people don't talk about. If they do, and if you're this person struggling with this, you feel so ashamed. You think, what's wrong with me? Why don't I want to jump out of bed in the morning and play with my child all day? Why don't I cook them meals from scratch? Oh, I've seen that person on Facebook with their so-called perfect life, and their kid's eating 5 fruit and veg a day, and my kid won't even look at one. There's all of these things that you take personally and you put on yourself personally. I think it's so damaging. I think if you suffer with mental illness anyway as an adult, you have no children, it's really difficult, it's really, really hard. But then when you become a parent, it kind of adds this whole second wave, or this whole new exposure to, okay, it's difficult being an adult with mental illness, but now you've got being a parent with mental illness, and it's like you're dealing with two things. It's like you've got it within yourself and within the other people that you're looking after. So it's definitely something that needs to be spoken about more, in my opinion. So I guess that's just why I wanted to talk about it today, because I'd like for some people to know that these things that they are going through in terms of everything that I've said today, it may not be what some people call normal. It is 100% the reality for so many people. It's so isolating. You feel like you're doing everything wrong sometimes and you're not, or how can I look after myself? And that's the important thing also to remember, is that you are in charge of these people and you're caring for these whole other human beings, but you also have to care for yourself. If you completely neglect yourself, then it makes it even harder for you to be able to provide care for another person. So you do have to try and remember to care for yourself. Don't guilt yourself if you have a day where you've, I don't know, had a pajama day and you've stayed in bed watching Disney Plus. Like, it's fine. If you are in that position, please don't feel like you're a failure. Don't feel like you're alone. Reach out to somebody, comment on my video. I always reply, and I'm always happy to speak to somebody a bit more in depth. Make that time for yourself. Look after yourself. Remember that you are also just as important as that child that you would literally die for. You are just as important. Whilst I'm here, I have also been pondering the idea of creating some kind of, maybe like a Discord, even though I've never used Discord, or a Facebook group or something to speak in that people can join, because I do a lot of this to provide awareness and support to other people, and that's literally what it's all about. Perhaps it would be nice to have a kind of space where we can talk amongst ourselves, if you don't feel like there's anywhere else you can talk, other people that understand you, or other people that want to learn, or just anything really. Let me know what you think to that idea of creating something like that. I do have a massive video list, but if there's anything you want to see me talk about, let me know in the comments. Sorry for the delay in upload. I actually recorded like 2 weeks ago and I edited my video. It was really long, and then I accidentally deleted the entire thing and I went on a strop about it for like a whole week, so that's why this is kind of late. Anyway, thanks for listening to me ramble on again. Sorry if my positioning was out, if my lighting was off, or if you can only see half of my head. I apologise, but I was just not doing this again. So I'm gonna wrap it up. I will see you in my next video. Thanks guys.